Please, take this to keep them warm.
The evening a stranger changed our lives. The first time Theodore Bennett placed his coat around my 3 daughters and said, "You're coming home with me." I thought he was offering us shelter for one night. I did not know that before the week was over, my mother-in-law would lose the mansion she had stolen from us, her charity would be exposed before the entire state, and a sealed letter from my dead husband would reveal that I had never been powerless at all. My name is Hannah Calloway. I was 33 years old when the life I had been surviving finally began to change. For 7 years, I lived at the Hawthorne estate in Newport, Rhode Island. It stood behind iron gates with white columns, ocean views, and gardens tourists often stopped to photograph. From the outside, it looked like a place where nothing painful could happen. Inside, I learned that beautiful houses can hide ugly truths. I married Andrew Hawthorne when I was 25. He was gentle, thoughtful, and nothing like the rest of his family. He cared more about people than old money or family names. Even when he came home exhausted, he read bedtime stories to our daughters. We had 3 girls. Clara was 9, serious and observant. Sophie was 7, curious and fearless. Nora was 5, soft-hearted and still young enough to believe that adults always told the truth. To me, they were the greatest gifts of my life. To Beatrice, they were proof that I had failed. She never said it in front of Andrew. She waited until he left the room. "A family like ours needs a son," she would tell me. Or, "3 daughters are lovely, of course, but none of them can carry the Hawthorne name in the proper way." Andrew always defended us when he heard her. He would laugh and say that his daughters could carry anything they wanted. Then, one rainy October morning, Andrew died in a car accident on the road between Providence and Newport. He had left home before sunrise for a meeting he refused to explain. 2 hours later, a state trooper stood at my door. That was the moment my world broke. But grief was only the beginning. Before I continue, tell me where you are listening from. What city, state, or country has this story reached? Please leave a comment below because I would truly love to know how far my voice has traveled. 3 days after Andrew's funeral, Beatrice came into the sitting room with 2 attorneys and a leather folder. I was still wearing black. Nora was asleep against my shoulder. Clara and Sophie sat close beside me. Beatrice did not ask whether I had eaten. She did not ask whether the girls had slept. She placed the folder on the table and said, "There are serious financial matters we must address." According to her, Andrew had left no valid personal will. She claimed several investments had failed. She said our home had been used as security for business obligations. She told me that the family accounts were frozen and that she had stepped in to protect us from public embarrassment. I did not understand half of what the attorney said. I trusted Andrew completely. He handled most of our financial planning while I focused on our daughters and the literacy program I ran at a neighborhood center. Grief made every sentence feel distant. Beatrice pushed papers toward me. She said they were temporary authorizations so she could keep utilities paid, protect assets, and handle taxes. I signed. That signature became the key she used to lock me out of my own life. Within 2 weeks, she took control of every account connected to Andrew. She closed my credit cards and sold the house where Andrew and I had raised our daughters, claiming the sale was necessary to satisfy debt. I asked for my mother's jewelry, which had been stored in our bedroom safe. Beatrice said the contents of the house were part of the estate review. I asked for Andrew's watch, his letters, and the wooden music box he kept beside our bed. She said everything would be cataloged. Nothing was ever returned. Then she announced that the girls and I would move into the Hawthorne estate. To outsiders, it looked generous. A local newspaper praised Beatrice for opening her home to her widowed daughter-in-law and 3 granddaughters. No one photographed the room she gave us. It was a narrow storage room beside the laundry area in the oldest part of the house. A single window faced a brick wall. The heating vent rattled. The floor smelled of detergent and damp wood. 3 small cots were placed side by side. I slept on a thin mattress near the door. Our clothes fit inside 2 metal cabinets. Beatrice called it temporary. We lived there for 11 months. During the day, she treated me like unpaid staff. I prepared breakfast trays, answered foundation letters, arranged flowers, checked guest rooms, supervised deliveries, and helped the kitchen workers whenever Beatrice hosted donors. At night, I listened to washing machines shake the wall while my daughters slept with their shoes tucked under their beds because they were afraid Beatrice might decide to move us again. I told myself I was enduring it for them. I believed that if I remained calm, polite, and useful, Beatrice might eventually release the accounts or return what belonged to us. But the more quietly I behaved, the more power she took. She removed Clara from her private school and said tuition was no longer practical. She canceled Sophie's piano lessons. She gave away Nora's small white bed because it did not match the storage room. Every decision came with the same reminder. If Andrew had left a son, this situation would be different. I began to hate that sentence. One evening, Clara asked me what was wrong with being a girl. I told her nothing was wrong with her. She looked at the floor and said, "Then why does grandmother act like we are the reason Daddy is gone?" That question cut deeper than anything Beatrice had ever said to me. I knelt in front of my daughters and promised that one day we would have a home where none of them would ever feel unwanted. At the time, I had no idea how I would keep that promise. The annual Hawthorne Foundation luncheon arrived in early September. It was Beatrice's most important event of the year. The foundation claimed to support women and children facing poverty and sudden loss. Its brochures showed smiling mothers and families receiving keys to new apartments. Beatrice loved speaking about compassion in public. She simply did not practice it in private. For 3 weeks, I worked from sunrise until midnight, confirming guests, arranging tables, preparing donor packets, and helping the kitchen staff. Beatrice hired a public relations team to make sure every photographer captured the right angles. The guest of honor was Theodore Bennett. His company owned hospitals and medical firms across the country, and business magazines estimated his fortune in the billions. His family trust had been one of the foundation's largest donors for nearly a decade. Beatrice spoke about his arrival as though a king were coming. "Nothing can go wrong," she told the staff. Then she looked directly at me. "That includes you." At noon, the ballroom filled with executives, physicians, officials, and donors. Crystal glasses shone beneath the chandeliers while a string quartet played near the garden doors. I wore an old gray dress. Beatrice said it was suitable because I was not a guest. My daughters were ordered to remain downstairs near the laundry room. At 11:45, Nora developed a fever. I asked Beatrice if I could stay with her. She looked at me as if I had requested a vacation. "The nanny can watch her," she said. "You are needed upstairs." There was no nanny. She meant one of the housekeepers, a woman already responsible for 2 floors. I went downstairs, gave Nora medicine, and asked Clara to come find me if the fever rose. Clara nodded like a child trying too hard to be an adult. I returned to the ballroom with guilt pressing against my chest. At 1:15, I carried a tray of teacups from the service hall. Another employee stepped backward without seeing me. Her elbow brushed my arm. One cup slid from the tray and shattered across the marble floor. The music stopped. Every face turned toward me. I immediately bent down. "I'm sorry," I said. "It was an accident." Beatrice rose from the head table. Her heels clicked across the floor. "You bring embarrassment wherever you go," she said loudly. I kept my eyes on the broken porcelain. I said, "I'm sorry." She leaned close enough for me to smell her perfume. "Sorry did not give this family a son. Sorry did not protect my son. Sorry has never made you useful." Then she shoved my shoulder aside so a server could reach the pieces. I stumbled and caught myself against the table. The room went silent. I heard someone whisper my name. I looked up. Theodore Bennett was watching us. He was taller than I expected, with silver at his temples and a calm expression that somehow made the entire room feel still. He did not look confused. He looked angry. He slowly stood. "Is this truly how you treat the women living under your roof?" he asked. Beatrice's face changed at once. Her public smile returned. "Theodore, please. She is family. Sometimes discipline is necessary." I touched my shoulder and heard my own voice say, "I am only family when work needs to be done." The words escaped before fear could stop them. Theodore looked at me, then back at Beatrice. "Then perhaps I have misunderstood the purpose of this foundation." Beatrice laughed softly. "This is a private family matter?" "No," he said. "You made it public the moment you humiliated her in front of your donors." He turned toward the guests. "Effective immediately, the Bennett Family Trust is withdrawing all support from the Hawthorne Foundation." A wave of shock moved through the ballroom. Beatrice stared at him. "You would destroy years of charitable work because of one emotional widow?" Theodore's expression hardened. "No, I refuse to support people who preach compassion while denying it to those under their own roof." Beatrice ordered security to remove me. 2 guards approached, both looking uncomfortable. Before they reached me, Clara appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale. "Mom," she said, "Nora is shaking." I dropped the tray. I ran toward her. Beatrice grabbed my arm. You are not leaving this room while my guests are watching. That was when Theodore stepped between us. Take your hand off her? Beatrice released me. I ran downstairs. Nora was curled on the mattress, shivering beneath a thin blanket. Sophie sat beside her, crying quietly. The room felt cold, even though it was early September. I lifted Nora into my arms. Theodore followed with Clara behind him. He stopped in the doorway and looked around. He saw the cots, the metal cabinets, the cracked wall beside the laundry pipes. He saw 4 toothbrushes in a cup near the sink. For the first time since he had stood up in the ballroom, his anger disappeared. Something like disbelief replaced it. You live here? He asked. I nodded. All 4 of you? Less. Behind him, several guests had followed. Among them were a pediatrician, a state senator, 2 foundation board members, and a local reporter. Beatrice arrived moments later. She saw the open door and the witnesses. Her face went white. This room is temporary, she said. Hannah refused more suitable arrangements. That lie gave me something I had not felt in almost a year. Strength? I looked directly at the reporter and said, I never refused anything. Nora whimpered against my chest. The pediatrician stepped forward and touched her forehead. She needs medical attention, he said. Theodore placed his dark coat around my daughters and looked at me. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. You're coming home with me. I barely knew him, but I knew Beatrice. In that moment, leaving with a stranger felt safer than staying with family. Theodore's driver took us to Newport Children's Hospital. Nora had a severe infection and was dehydrated, but the doctor said she would recover. Clara and Sophie slept on a pull-out sofa while I held Nora's hand. Theodore stayed in the hallway, arranging clothing, food, and a place for us to stay. Near midnight, he came into the room. I owe you an explanation, he said. I was too tired to be polite. You owe me nothing, but I need to know why you are helping us. He sat in the chair across from me. Because Andrew asked me to, I stared at him. The room seemed to tilt. You knew my husband? Yes. He contacted me 6 months before he died. Theodore explained that Andrew had discovered irregularities in the Hawthorne Foundation's financial records. Donations intended for housing programs and emergency grants were being transferred through consulting firms connected to Beatrice's personal advisors. At first, Andrew believed it was careless accounting. Then he found evidence that money had been diverted for years. He approached Theodore because the Bennett Family Trust was the foundation's largest outside donor. Andrew wanted an independent audit. He also wanted to protect me and our daughters before confronting his mother. Why didn't he tell me? I asked. He said you had already endured enough tension from Beatrice. He wanted proof before bringing you into it. My anger rose through my grief. He should have trusted me. Yes, Theodore said. He should have. His honesty surprised me. What happened to the audit? Andrew was supposed to bring me a full copy of the records the morning he died. I could barely breathe. The meeting in Providence. Theodore nodded. He was on his way to see my attorney. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I heard the soft rhythm of Nora's monitor. Are you saying Beatrice caused the accident? No, he said immediately. There is no evidence of that. The police report describes wet roads and a mechanical failure. I will not accuse anyone without proof. Then what are you saying? I am saying Andrew knew his mother might retaliate financially. He created protections. After his death, those protections disappeared. I thought about the attorneys, the leather folder, the papers I had signed. I signed everything she gave me. You signed while grieving, without independent counsel. That does not change what I did. It may change whether those documents are enforceable. He reached into his briefcase and removed a small envelope. On the front, Andrew had written my name. My hands began to shake. Where did you get this? Andrew left it with me. He told me to give it to you only if he failed to attend our meeting. You waited 11 months. Pain flashed across Theodore's face. I tried to contact you after the funeral. Beatrice's office told me you were recovering privately and did not wish to speak with anyone. My letters were returned. My staff was told you had moved abroad with the girls. I closed my eyes. She had not only taken our money, she had hidden us. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single page. Hannah, if you are reading this, something has gone wrong. First, know that you and our daughters are protected. I created a trust in your name and theirs. The house is not collateral. No one has the right to sell it without your authorization and the approval of an independent trustee. Second, the foundation records are hidden where my mother will never look because she considers the room beneath her. Look behind the loose panel beside the old laundry shelves. Trust Theodore Bennett. More importantly, trust yourself. I should have told you sooner. I thought I was protecting you from the burden. I see now that keeping you uninformed only gave others power. You were always stronger than this family understood. I love you. Andrew, I read the letter 3 times, then I cried without making a sound. The next morning, Theodore introduced me to an attorney named Marisol Green. She did not speak to me like I was fragile. She asked precise questions. She reviewed every paper I remembered signing. She obtained court records, property filings, trust registrations, and copies of the estate documents Beatrice had submitted. By evening, Marisol had found the first lie. Andrew did have a will. It had been filed with a private estate firm 8 months before his death. Beatrice's attorneys had presented an older document to the probate court and claimed no later version could be located. The newer will named me as primary beneficiary and created separate trusts for each daughter. It also appointed Theodore Bennett as independent trustee if Andrew died before the girls became adults. That was why Beatrice had tried to keep Theodore away from me. The second lie was even larger. Our house had not been burdened by Andrew's business debts. The deed transfer carried an authorization I had never approved. My signature had been copied from the papers I signed after the funeral, and the buyer was a holding company controlled by one of Beatrice's attorneys. Marisol looked at me across the conference table. This was not estate management, she said. This appears to be fraud. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt ashamed. How did I let this happen? Marisol leaned back. You buried your husband, protected 3 children, and relied on people who claimed to be helping you. Their deception is not your failure. Those words became the first stone in the road that led me back to myself. Theodore offered us rooms in one of his guest houses outside Newport until the case was resolved. I refused at first because I did not want to exchange one powerful family's control for another's generosity. He understood, so we made the arrangement formal. I signed a short-term lease for $1. The guest house was small compared with the estate, but to my daughters it felt like a palace. Clara had a desk by the window. Sophie found a piano, and Nora asked 3 times whether her yellow-covered bed was truly hers. That first night, we ate grilled cheese sandwiches in the kitchen. No silver trays. No staff, no one judging the way we sat. Sophie spilled tomato soup. All 4 of us froze, then I started laughing. The girls looked at me in surprise. I laughed until tears ran down my face. Clara joined me. Then Sophie. Even Nora giggled. It was the first happy sound our family had made in almost a year. But while my daughters began to feel safe, the investigation became more dangerous. Marisol obtained a court order allowing us to retrieve personal belongings from the Hawthorne estate. Beatrice fought it. She claimed the laundry room had been renovated after we left and that nothing remained. That made me remember Andrew's letter. The records were behind a loose panel beside the old laundry shelves. We returned to the estate with a court officer, Marisol, and a forensic accountant. Beatrice stood in the entrance hall wearing cream-colored silk. You are making a terrible mistake, she told me. No, I said. I made my mistake when I believed you. She smiled. You think Theodore Bennett will save you? Men like him do not rescue women like you. They collect loyalty, then send the bill. I almost let the words frighten me. Then Clara slipped her hand into mine. I walked past Beatrice. The laundry room looked different. The cots were gone. The walls had been painted. New shelves covered the old stone. But one section of wood near the floor was slightly darker than the rest. The court officer removed it. Behind the panel was a metal box. Inside were flash drives, printed ledgers, copies of bank transfers, and a small black notebook in Andrew's handwriting. The forensic accountant examined the first pages. Then he looked at Marisol. This is enough to justify a full criminal referral? Beatrice, standing in the doorway, did not move. For the first time, she looked afraid. The records showed that more than $12 million had been diverted from the Hawthorne Foundation over 6 years. Some money paid for private travel. Some covered renovations at the estate. Some moved into shell companies controlled by advisors and board members. The cruelest part was a program called Safe Harbor Homes. The foundation had raised millions by promising temporary housing for widows and children facing sudden loss. Only 3 families had received meaningful help. The rest of the money had vanished into administrative contracts. I thought about the narrow room beside the laundry machines. Beatrice had used photographs of struggling mothers to collect donations while forcing her own grieving granddaughters to live in a storage room. The irony was so complete that it no longer felt ironic. It felt planned. The board called an emergency meeting. Beatrice arrived with 4 attorneys. She blamed the accountants. She blamed Andrew. She blamed a former executive director who had died 2 years earlier. Then she blamed me. Hannah has always been emotionally unstable, she said. My son worried about her judgment. After his death, I did everything possible to protect the children. Marisol placed photographs of our room on the screen. The local reporter who had followed us downstairs at the luncheon had taken them before Beatrice's staff cleared the space. There were the cots, the metal cabinets, the cracked wall, Nora's medicine on the shelf. No one in the room spoke. Then Marisol displayed the property records, the forged authorization, the holding company, the payments to Beatrice's attorney. One board member covered his face. Another resigned immediately. Beatrice kept her posture straight. You have no idea what it takes to preserve a family legacy, she said. I looked at her across the table. You are right. I do not know what it takes to preserve your kind of legacy. I placed Andrew's letter beside the evidence. But I know what it takes to end it. The board voted to remove her as chairwoman. The state attorney general's office opened an investigation. Federal authorities became involved because donations had crossed state lines and several filings appeared false. Newspapers published the story across the country. The same society pages that once praised Beatrice's charity now printed photographs of the laundry room. But public humiliation was not the revenge I wanted. I wanted everything she had taken returned. The court froze the estate and related accounts. Our house had been renovated and listed for resale, but the sale was reversed after evidence of fraudulent transfer. My mother's jewelry was discovered in a locked cabinet in Beatrice's dressing room. Andrew's watch was found in a desk. The music box appeared at an auction house in Boston. One by one, pieces of my life came back, but not all of them. Some letters were missing, photographs had been damaged, and several of the girls' belongings were gone. Justice can return property. It cannot return time. The hardest battle involved the Hawthorne estate itself. Andrew's newer will revealed that the mansion did not belong solely to Beatrice. His father had placed the property in a family trust years earlier. Andrew held the controlling interest after his father's death. Under the trust terms, Andrew's shares passed to his spouse and children. That meant the estate Beatrice had ruled as her kingdom now belonged mostly to me and my daughters. When Marisol told me, I felt no joy. I remembered Clara asking what was wrong with being a girl. I remembered Sophie practicing piano scales with her fingers on a laundry shelf because her lessons had been canceled. I remembered Nora sleeping in her coat when the heating vent stopped working. Beatrice had said a son was needed to carry the family name. Yet 3 daughters now held the future of everything she valued. Marisol asked whether I wanted to force Beatrice to leave immediately. I thought about it overnight. The easiest revenge would have been to send her into the same uncertainty she had created for us. But I did not want my daughters to learn that justice meant becoming crueler than the person who hurt you. So I gave Beatrice 30 days to move into another property she owned. I also offered her the right to keep her personal clothing, family photographs, and furniture inherited from her mother. She rejected the offer. She called me weak. Then she challenged the trust. For 6 more months, she delayed and appealed while I began rebuilding my own life. I returned to the neighborhood literacy center. The board asked me to lead a new program for widowed parents returning to work. Theodore helped only when I asked. He did not make decisions for me, speak over me, or use his money as a reason I should trust him. One afternoon, he admitted that his life had become a series of meetings and obligations. That sounds lonely, I said. It was efficient, he answered. So is a filing cabinet. He laughed, and for the first time I saw the man beneath the reputation. Our friendship grew slowly. He came to Clara's school presentation and sat in the back row. He listened to Sophie play her first full piano piece without checking his phone. He taught Nora how to make hot chocolate, although he burned the first batch. He never tried to replace Andrew. That was why my daughters trusted him. Meanwhile, the case against Beatrice strengthened. Investigators found emails showing that she knew exactly where the foundation money had gone. They found a message to her attorney sent the morning after Andrew's death. It read, "Secure Hannah's signature before anyone from Bennett reaches her." Another email instructed staff to return all letters addressed to me. The final evidence came from former assistant Margaret Hale. Margaret had worked at the estate for 22 years. She had remained silent because Beatrice paid for her husband's medical care and threatened to stop if Margaret spoke. After Theodore arranged independent treatment through a patient assistance program, Margaret agreed to testify. She described the night Beatrice ordered staff to remove our belongings from our home before I had even returned from the funeral. She described the forged digital authorization. She described Beatrice burning a copy of Andrew's newer will in the fireplace. Then Margaret revealed something none of us expected. Andrew had not hidden only financial records in the laundry room. He had hidden a video. The original file had been copied to one of the flash drives, but it was buried inside an encrypted folder. A digital specialist recovered it. In the video, Andrew sat in his office 3 days before his death. He looked tired. He spoke directly to the camera. "My name is Andrew Hawthorne. I am recording this because I believe my mother and several advisors have misused funds from the Hawthorne Foundation. If anything happens to me, I want it understood that my wife, Hannah, has no involvement. She has repeatedly encouraged me to make the foundation more transparent, though she does not know the full extent of what I discovered." He paused. Then he said the words that changed my daughters forever. "My mother believes a son is necessary to continue this family. She is wrong. My daughters are the best of us. Clara sees the truth. Sophie questions everything. Nora loves without fear. If the Hawthorne name deserves a future, it is because they will give it one." I stopped the video and covered my mouth. Clara was standing behind me. I had not heard her enter the room. "Daddy said that about us?" she asked. I pulled her into my arms. "Yes. Can Sophie and Nora hear it? We watched the video together that evening. Nora cried because she missed his voice. Sophie asked to play it again. Clara remained silent until the end. Then she said, "Grandmother lied." "Wes?" "She said Daddy wanted a son." "I know." Clara looked at the dark screen. "I'm glad he told the truth before he died." So was I. The trial began the following spring. Beatrice faced charges related to fraud, conspiracy, falsified filings, and misuse of charitable funds. 2 attorneys and a former foundation officer were charged with her. She entered the crowded courthouse in navy blue, her chin lifted as though she were attending another luncheon. For weeks, her defense described her as an elderly philanthropist betrayed by ambitious employees and a resentful daughter-in-law. They said I had manipulated Theodore into financing a personal attack. They suggested Andrew had been unstable. Then the prosecution played Andrew's video. The courtroom became completely still. Beatrice did not look at the screen. She looked at me. For years, I had lowered my eyes when she entered a room. This time, I held her gaze. The prosecution presented the ledgers, emails, forged documents, property transfers, and witness testimony. Margaret spoke clearly. The accountant traced every dollar, and Marisol explained how I had been pressured to sign documents days after burying my husband. Then I took the stand. Beatrice's attorney asked why I had remained at the estate if conditions were truly so terrible. I answered honestly, because I was grieving, because I had 3 children, because I had no access to money, because every person around me said Beatrice controlled everything, and because shame can make a locked door look like shelter. He asked whether Theodore and I were romantically involved. At that time, we were not. I said so. He asked whether I hoped to benefit from his wealth. I looked toward the jury. I spent 11 months sleeping on a mattress beside a laundry room while property legally belonging to my daughters was held upstairs. I am not here because I want another person's wealth. I am here because I finally learned to reclaim my own. The jury found Beatrice guilty on nearly every count. The judge ordered restitution, asset recovery, and a prison sentence. But the most meaningful judgment came outside the criminal case. The court permanently removed her from the Hawthorne Family Trust. Control of the estate passed to me as guardian of Clara, Sophie, and Nora. The Hawthorne Foundation was dissolved, and its legitimate assets were transferred into a new organization under independent oversight. I accepted the role of chairwoman on one condition: it would not carry the Hawthorne name. We called it the Open Door Foundation. Its first project converted part of the Hawthorne estate into temporary apartments for widowed parents and children facing sudden displacement. The ballroom where Beatrice humiliated me became a community dining hall. The East Wing became 6 family suites. The formal library became a legal aid office. And the laundry room where my daughters and I had slept was preserved not as a place of shame. As a reminder, we placed a small plaque outside the door. It read, "Compassion that exists only in public is not compassion." On opening day, dozens of people gathered on the lawn. Reporters asked whether turning the estate into housing was my revenge. I thought about the question. Then I said, My revenge is that everything she used to make us feel small now helps other families stand again. That evening, after the guests left, my daughters and I walked through the quiet house. Clara was 10 by then. Sophie was 8. Nora was 6. They ran through the ballroom in socks. Their laughter echoed beneath the chandeliers. We did not move back into the mansion. The girls did not want to, and neither did I. A house can be returned by a court and still feel filled with old fear. We kept the guest house lease for several more months, then bought a warm, ordinary home near the water. It had 4 bedrooms, a bright kitchen, and a backyard large enough for a crooked swing set. The first thing Clara asked was whether she could paint her room blue. I told her she could paint it any color she wanted. Sophie chose yellow. Nora asked for stars on her ceiling. I chose white walls and windows that opened toward the ocean. On the anniversary of Andrew's death, we planted a maple tree in the yard. Theodore joined us. Afterward, he handed me a small wooden box. It was Andrew's music box, restored by a craftsman in Boston. Inside, beneath the velvet lining, we found one final note. It was not about money, trusts, or evidence. It simply said, "Hannah, home was never the house. It was you and the girls." I closed the box and cried. Theodore stood beside me without speaking. Later, after the girls went inside, we sat on the porch. "I think Andrew would have liked this place," Theodore said. "I think so too." He looked toward the maple tree. "He was right about you." "About what? That you were stronger than his family understood." I smiled. "No. I became strong after they made weakness impossible. Theodore and I did not begin a fairy tale romance overnight. Real life is quieter than that. We remained friends until one winter evening, nearly 2 years after the luncheon, when he asked me to dinner without attorneys, board members, children, or medical emergencies. I told him yes. Clara pretended not to smile when he picked me up. Sophie played romantic music on the piano until I threatened to cancel dessert. Nora asked whether billionaires got nervous on dates. Theodore admitted that at least one did. Whatever came next, I knew one thing. He had not saved me. He had opened a door when I was too exhausted to see it. I was the one who walked through, and my daughters walked with me. Before I end, here is the heart of our story. A grieving widow lost her husband, her home, her money, and her confidence. A powerful mother-in-law used charity as a mask while taking control of everything. But one public moment exposed the truth. That moment led to a hidden letter, stolen property, secret records, a forged estate plan, and proof that the daughters Beatrice dismissed were the rightful future of the family. The lesson is simple. Never confuse silence with weakness. People who are grieving can be manipulated, especially when money, family pressure, and legal documents are involved. Ask questions. Get independent advice. Keep copies. And remember that anyone who demands your obedience while calling it protection may be protecting only their own power. Justice does not always arrive as a dramatic punishment. Sometimes justice is a locked account reopened, a stolen home returned, a frightened child given her own room, a false charity transformed into real shelter. And sometimes the best revenge is not destroying the house where you suffered. It is opening the doors so no one else has to suffer there again. Thank you for listening to my story. Please like this video, leave a comment, and tell me which moments stayed with you the most. And once again, tell me where you are listening from. Your city, your state, or your country may be farther from Rhode Island than I can imagine, but your voice still reaches me. For 11 months, Beatrice Hawthorne made my daughters sleep beside a laundry room because she believed they were not worthy of her family name. In the end, those 3 girls inherited the future, opened the doors, and turned her proudest symbol into a refuge for people she had only pretended to care about. That was not the ending Beatrice expected. It was the ending my daughters deserved.